we didn't get our set piece going. We didn't really scavenge as well as we would have liked to. I think we fell off 34 tackles, 21 in the first half. I thought the first quarter, there's a little bit of positive in that. I think it was tight in that first quarter. Obviously, when we led 10-8, there was a bit of promise there, but very disappointing. Probably just that try just before half-time, or not long before half-time, when Connor was down and they worked the overlap against 14 men. We've got to be able to defend with 14 men, and I certainly would never use that as an excuse, but they did quite well there. And just to go into the shed at half-time, 22-10, there's a big difference to 15-10, because you kind of 2 scores away then, and I think we were underdone. We were a bit heavy-legged, and it doesn't have to be too much of a margin between two teams, 2 individuals, 1v1, for one to be a bit sluggish and the other one to be on top of their game. And certainly for some of their guys, I thought they've had two games. This is their 3rd game, and they looked sharper than we were.
You say you're always worried about every performance. Would that worry you a little bit more, or is there something decided there? Reassuring knowing the guys' conditions?
Yeah, I know we can get better than that. I know we have to, and I think the players will take responsibility for making sure that they do everything they can to turn it around next week, and then build forward the week after that, because what really matters is in 4 weeks' time. We've got to go out and be as competitive and as accurate as we can be against Scotland. They had a 30-point margin against them last week, and they turned it around to win today. So it's a little bit what happens at this time of the year in the lead up to a World Cup. You do get some disproportionate scores, but we still have to accept that we weren't nearly good enough today, and we've got to be a lot better next time we're out.
What's the latest on Keane
Keane, he sprained his ankle. He has had an X-ray, and that's clear. So we're hopeful. He walked from the pitch, so we're hopeful that he'll be okay. With Connor, he passed his HIA. We had a bit of a breakdown in our communications, and he wasn't actually meant to go back out before half-time. So at half-time we took him off. We were only planning to give him maybe 45, 50 minutes and give Luke another decent run. It's one of the things at this time of the year, leading into World Cup, that you are trying to mix and match and give different amounts of time to different players to let them put their best foot forward, and also to try to build a little bit of continuity for some of those guys who haven't had as much time in the team over recent years.
Joe, after the Six Nations defeat in Twickenham, the guys were talking about feeling maybe like they were bullied then and trying not to let that be a theme. Was it a repeat of that today?
No, I think certainly they've got some fantastic athletes, and Coggan Singer versus Jordan Lama, a good big man, good little man. Some of that is going to happen. Manu Tuolangi, Billy Vunipola, and I thought Atoje hit some very good lines. So did a couple of their other guys that were a handful. So Tom Curry, but again, we've got to be way better than that to make sure that we can close those guys down. I think it was on the back of a stream of possession that it, I think we can't just afford to keep giving them access like that, or we will start losing collisions. There were a few times I felt we drove them back as well. Billy got stopped dead a few times. We drove them back, and George Ford was forced to kick it, and unfortunately, when he did put it into the corner, we lost the line out, and they scored anyway. So that was a frustration for us. It was as I said at the start, a litany of uncharacteristic inaccuracies from us that contributed to our own downfall, along with an England team that's probably further down the road than we are, and is very, very good.
Rory, can you explain the malfunctions at the line out, and is it a worry for you? look, I think it's incredibly frustrating whenever your set piece doesn't go the way you planned. But there's a big difference between training and you try to put as much pressure on as you can in training, and then you come up against a line-out defence that is one of the best in the world, and we won the first one, went well, and then they competed in the second, and I think we just sort of got within ourselves a little bit, and everyone got a little bit nervous, and they just kept coming after us there, and look, there's no doubt that it affected our game, and we got to look at why it affected our game. We've got to look about how we can be better. I think we can increase the pace we come in. I think they probably give us a lesson into whenever not quite ready, just hold off and hit the line and go, whereas we were a wee bit laboured coming in. We give them a few pictures to look at and move around and read, and a combination of a couple of throws not right, a couple of the calls, a couple of the movements a bit slow, and look, I think we thought we were in a good place, but it was a big lesson for us today that we got to get a lot better. We got to put a lot more pressure on ourselves when we're training, and yeah, look, I think there's not a lot else you can do except hold your hands up and say that we weren't good enough there.
Is it fixable? Because obviously it's the starting point for so much. Like it wasn't one scrum for Ireland in the first half.
Yeah, look, I think it is fixable. I think if you look at our set piece over the last while has been a strong point for us. It's something we launch off. Obviously, that horrific day in Cardiff, it malfunctioned a little bit, and that was disappointing. And obviously, it wasn't great today, and we're going to have to wear that. But look, we've had a few iffy days before, and come back the next week against quality sides and performed really well. And look, I think we have a good belief in our process there, and like I say, sometimes you think you're going well, and then you come up against something that you're expecting, but you're maybe not expecting to be as good and well oiled as it was, and the confidence got knocked a little bit because it was the first game, and we just had a few combinations that didn't perform as well as we'd like. But we're going to have to look back at that, and like I say, there's really not a lot else you can do except hold your hand up and say it wasn't good enough, but we know we can be a lot better in that area.
How much of that's going to be driven by you and the leadership group and the players, rather than getting Joe Township something more, or you guys focus on that yourselves?
I think we got to put more pressure on ourselves in training. I think that sometimes it is, you think you're in a good place now. Look, I think we said it in some of the press that everyone feels they're in a good spot now because you've come off a pre-season, it's running, you're training against each other, when you put pressure on yourself, but nothing's quite like the pressure when you get into a game, and you can either go confirms that yeah, you're in a really good spot, or else it goes, oh shit, right, we're not quite where we want to be. And today was a swear word, we're not quite where we want to be, and the line-out's going to be one of them, and we're going to have to make sure that we nail that. I think we have been really happy with our process, and we just let that drift a little bit today. I think both hookers were a wee bit slow to get set. Like I say, the line was laboured coming in, and we just got to make sure that doesn't happen again, because I think when you can get that speeded up and you don't give the team pictures, it's a lot easier to win the ball when they're not all over you. And I think when you look at some of those line-outs in the first half, they had people everywhere, and then everyone just gets a little bit edgy.
Joe, they managed to get a couple of scores and games off first phase, strikes off their scrums quickly. Is that very fixable, and what do you think that was down to?
Yeah, certainly the first one was really an error on the inside, and then we were playing catch up out wide when they scored the first try in the right hand corner, and then the second one we undid ourselves really. We got up and in, and we were probably trying to force something to happen. When you're not getting a stream of possession yourself, you start going after opportunities to upset theirs to try to create an opportunity, and sometimes when you try too hard like that and you're chasing the game, you actually open yourself up, especially when their timing and their skill is good. And they undid us with one through the middle from a very basic play from Owen going in behind 13 and Cognisinger getting the space through the middle. So there's some pretty big frustration there. I think we got one back against them as well, which isn't too bad, considering the position that we didn't have where we got them on the outside. But we'd be really disappointed with the lack of connection in offering up those those 2 tries. The first one was really well worked by them, but as I said, our defence coming out off the scrum wasn't as good as it needs to be, and then once that happens and people are squaring in, you really you're in a tough position.
Joe, you got 2 against Wales to come up. Warren Gatton the other week mentioned you had an agreement about how you select your team for it. Does it change after today's defeat? Your thoughts on those?
Not really. I mean, we've got to give guys an opportunity. We gave a couple of guys an opportunity today, guys who haven't had a lot of time with us, and we'll do the same again next week. I think one of the things for us is that we've got a couple of guys who will come in and bring a bit of energy next week, and we're looking forward to that, and it'll keep a bit of pressure on some of the guys who probably didn't go as well as they would have liked today.
It's probably a hard day to make a good impression, Joe, but what did you make of Ross Byrne's performance?
Yeah, it was tough for Ross. I mean, you want to be able to get some set-piece ball on the front foot, and Ross didn't get that opportunity, and often for a 10, that's when you start to get a little bit of confidence in the game. Tough day defensively as well. He had some big men coming down his channel. He made a couple of really good tackles, and he struggled a couple of times as well. He wanted to be able to run the game and boss the game, but if you don't have the ball, it's very hard to boss the game, and especially when you don't have the ball on the front foot. That was a real frustration.
Are the handful of players who haven't played so far, are they likely to come in next week, or do you think they match?
Yeah, I think we will bring a few in for next week for sure, and then there are probably 1 or 2 that we might bring in again for the final weekend. So we have a little bit of a plan. Some guys are operating on a pre-season that's just coming to a close, and then they'll freshen up and get into the game next week or the week after, depending on how we feel they're going. But we certainly need to hit the ground running against Scotland, so we can't afford to be mixing and matching too much right now.
So Joe, where would that leave Johnny, Sexton and Robbie Henshaw? Would they be likely to play next week?
Yeah, we'll certainly look at that. Guys like James Ryan, Jack Conan. There's a few guys who could come into the picture next week and probably bring a little bit of a little bit of energy that we were lacking today. So we'll look at that. I think also guys like Keith Earls, those sorts of guys, we still feel will come in and add some value yet.
How do you keep the confidence up in the group, Joe? Last time I see the team, as you said, a little bit broken afterwards. Is that a concern?
I don't think so, but inevitably it hurts right now. I mean, that's a big score to offer up, and there are some elements of the process that we know weren't nearly good enough. Bestie's been talking about the line out. I did feel our first 2 scrums I felt were really good, and I was really disappointed to get penalised as we did when I felt the first scrum we were very legal, and he said it came up, but we were certainly dominant. And so there are a couple of things that I think there's a little bit of promise in, but to miss 34 tackles, to be sluggish in getting ourselves organised as we were. I knew we'd be a bit heavy-legged. I knew that it wouldn't be perfect today because we had a big workload, and I think you saw that with Wales versus England in their first match, and then the next week they managed to topple them. Scotland managed to topple France today because they weren't quite ready the first week, and you do get a bit of that, but it doesn't happen automatically, and we've got an away game in the Millennium next up, and it'll be Gat's last game there, and I'm pretty sure they've sold that out, so it's going to be a bit of a cauldron to go to, but that will be a great challenge for these players, because they're going to have to really step up and turn things around.